Hey racers, Sherpa Dave here, coming at you with the Climbers Gambit race recon. Slightly late than usual because I'm still stuck with after effects of COVID. Alright, it's a 27.9 kilometer ride, 670 horrendous meters of elevation, most of them at the back. There's some great points available though. JWB Sprint, that's the Watopia reverse, then over to Titans Grove KQOM, that's the reverse of that one, and then it's the epic KQOM reverse as well, the worst way to go up that hill. Let's take a look at the race on a page. So it is 28 kilometers, 670 meters of climbing. As I said, everybody does one lap. Where do you score points? Those three places that I mentioned, the Watopia reverse sprint, or as I think it should be known, the JWB Sprint, Titans reverse KQOM, and the epic KQOM reverse. You can see those on the profile view at the bottom, and of course, finish position gets everyone points as well. 3 power-ups. There is the burrito, 10 seconds draft removal for riders around you within, I think, 2.5 meters. There is the anvil, which increases weight for 30 seconds, useful for picking up speed going downhill. And then, of course, the feather, which reduces weight for 10 seconds. Bike choice is an interesting one here, and I'm going to cover it in a little more detail later on. As I always like to do, massive great thank you to everyone whose name is flying past you at the speed of light. These are people that have donated coffee to Sherpa Dave this month. But of course, as I always say, that's not the only way to help Sherpa. You can tell your friends, like and subscribe, download the notes, and only after you've done all those things, buy him a coffee. Let's take a look at my key race points. There's 5 of them. I think that if you are looking piece by piece through the race, obviously the first thing you hit is the sprint. You can see that again on the profile view down the bottom. If all you want is sprint points, make sure you think about an aero setup for your bike. Consider going early at that climb, the last big climb of the S's, and split between you and everyone else. That's something to consider. And whatever you do, if you're going for that sprint, you have to accelerate hard back down the S's descent and into that sprint. You can't wait till you're close to the sprint to build your speed up. Okay, over to the next point that I have, the next little lightning bolt on the profile view, and that is the hilly climb. You don't go all the way over the hilly reverse KQOM, no points there, but you do go over that first steep part around the bend of the hilly reverse. And I think a split will happen there because you will be moving as fast as you can through there, and that is a tough climb. It hits 10, 11% for long enough that the bigger riders will really get hurt by it. So watch for that at 5.3 kilometers. The second part of that is as you go over the top of that hill and take the bypass, that's when you need to accelerate so you hit super tuck speed. And if you don't accelerate through and you don't make super tuck speed, you're going to be gassed at the bottom of that while everyone else is taking that little micro rest. I would say use the feather if you truly have to, but you're better off keeping it for the KQOM itself, but do use that anvil on the descent to speed you up to super tuck speed faster than you otherwise would. Okay, Titans approach. Titans and the approach to Titans, or reverse Titans, I should say. In the whole stretch that goes from the end of that super tuck all the way into the KQOM, you want to be trying to rest as much as you can. Close down breaks that happen, but don't overexert yourself on the approach. When you get to the KQOM itself, then be aware it's a steady, draftable VO2 max effort, and you want to use the burrito or the feather if you've still got them as you go up there to gain position. Drive over the top and recover, but don't coast down the hill because it's not steep enough to pick up enough speed, and everybody will be pushing on as hard as they can. The Titans bumps, these are the sort of the undulations that head generally upwards after the descent of Titans. And so watch for splits here as tired riders after that VO2 max effort just can't hold with the pack. Don't be one of those riders. And if you're in a pack, make sure you're towards the front, not at the front, because you will still want to be drafting where you can. And make sure you don't get caught out in a split that was not of your making. And then last, epic reverse. This truly is a race inside a race. It is between 15, if you're someone a hell of a lot faster than me, to 30 minutes of threshold. Again, you got to ride this hill as best you can. Shut down other brakes if you got the energy. Conserve your energy. It's not draftable except in a few small areas, so don't worry about that. But you also don't want to get dropped and hope you can pick people up. But, and here's the key, this is a long enough climb that if you get dropped earlier on in the flat, you can come back. So don't lose hope if you're a climber that's a little ways back in the pack and have been dropped before you get there. There is enough time to recover that, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. The only other thing to point out here is the last 300 meters is actually flat. So be conscious of that, because you can use that to sprint, I guess would be the word, to the end of the line. All right, strategy. I don't normally do this. This is a new slide for me, but I've broken strategy out into 3 sections for 3 different kinds of riders. So the first is the pure sprinters. You may look at the profile of this ride and say, this is not a ride for me, but I don't think that's true. It's actually structured kind of beautifully for everybody, because 2.8 kilometers in, we've got an actual sprint. And if you are a sprinter, then you can drive the head of the pack and push super hard across there. And then, yes, you're going to be wiped out and not going to have a lot left if you win those sprint points, but get the sprint points that you can, carry on, survive going up the epic reverse, and get whatever finishing points you can get from there. But there's another thing here as well, which is team strategy, because if you've exhausted yourself or pushed really hard through that sprint, perhaps what you do have left, you can use to nurse your climbers along. If you've got climbers in your team, keep them as close to the front as you can in there for as long as you can, so they can preserve their energy as they go. So that is my thought for the strategy. That is my thought for the sprinters. Let's think now about the punchers. Little less meaty perhaps than the sprinters themselves, but still able to punch over the top of a decent climb. I think you're going to be on a more balanced bike than the sprinters. You're not going to go pure aero. You want something that's going to still get you up that KQOM in decent enough pace. But here's how I think this works for you. If there are pure sprinters out there, you're not going to beat them in that first sprint. They're too fresh, they're too early, and they're too intense in that first few kilometers. So if you're more of a puncher, then you're going to preserve your strength for going up Titan's reverse. So that comes a little bit later, just before 12 kilometers. So you're going to nurse your way all the way there in the lead group. Let the sprinters fight over the sprint itself, but make sure you're nice and fresh when you get to 11.9 and just blast up Titan's reverse, securing the FTS and FAL points as you go. After that, recover as best you can and push hard all the way to the foot of the epic KQOM and push up there at a threshold level to the top and pick up whatever finishing points that you have, and hoping that your little group of punchers has left behind those climbers. Again, kind of like I said with the sprinters, extra team kudos for helping out any of the climbers on your team and pulling them along and keeping them as fresh as they can before they get to the epic KQOM, which leads me to the climbers themselves, the grimpeurs. which I probably mangled as a pronunciation, but there you go. I've got a blocked nose. I'll blame that. Look, the trick here is to know that you're not going to get points on the sprint or on the first KQOM, because your strength lies in the fact that you are slight of frame and fast up a hill. So you are going to do everything that you can to preserve the watts all the way to the epic KQOM. So you're probably not in the front group. You're probably somewhere behind, hopefully not too far. But this is where you have to have faith that a 15 to 30 minute climb, depending on your category, is enough time for you to overhaul those heavy punchers. And you'll have already overhauled those sprinters, I'm sure. But you'll overhaul those punchers and move past them into FAL, FTS, and FIN points on that all-important finish at the top of epic KQOM. Quick word on bikes. I think this one could be interesting for the lighter riders because you've got a couple of choices and only you know yourself, right? You can go with a climber's bike. Now, going with the climber's bike is certainly going to help you when you get to the epic KQOM, so a lightweight bike. But the problem is you've got to still be close enough to the rest of the pack by the time you get to the foot of the epic that you can overhaul everyone and use that lightweight bike to its best effect. So high risk maybe, but definitely a potential for high reward on a light bike. The other thing to do is to hedge your bets, kind of like I said with the punchers. Go with something middle of the road, not a heavy bike, not a full aero bike. There's no way you're going to get up the epic if you do that. But perhaps something like the Tron or middle of the road where it's not too heavy, but on the other hand, it's got a little bit of aero to help it along. So I think bike choice is very much a personal one for the climbers, for the grimpeurs of the ride on Tuesday. All right, so there's the three. I called this one team strategy because I tried to point out that even if you go for those early or middle points, you can still really help your team out by nursing the climbers and pulling them as far on as you can, just like in a real race out in the real world. Pull them along and get them to the foot of the climb, your GC climbers, in the best shape that they can be so that they can sprint like a gazelle or a mountain goat up that hill. All right, that's enough of that. Let's move on. Let's take a look at the DS notes. I won't spend long here because, as I always try and say, if you follow that link in the top right-hand corner, you can download these DS notes, and in fact, you can download all the files that I'm showing you here and share them with your team. And that's a great way to sort of talk about strategy and talk about what you're going to do on each ride. I've highlighted in orange the 3 point scoring opportunities, and I've got a distance from the A pens is where I measured this from on the left, and on the right hand side you have the distance to go to the finish line. So there we go. Target times, and just like last week, I've actually put the target times for the 2 KQOMs actually into the race itself as we're moving through it. But here's what I think the targets are for the entire ride for women and mixed through A, B, C, and D cat. I'm not going to go through each of them. It'll be interesting to see what you think of the numbers that I've stuck up here. This is not a route that is raced all that often, so I think I did a pretty decent job from the information that was available to me. Let me know what you think. Does this represent what will happen in your particular division? The comments down below are where to stick your views. Now let's jump in to the lap itself. I will say that I try and jump forward as much as I can here so you still get the full flavor of the ride without wasting too much time. And as we go up that final climb, I actually do that at 10 times normal speed. And even though I'm not a very fast rider, at least 10 times normal speed gives you something. And I'm also flagging up kilometer markers as we go. Okay, there's the 3D view from VeloViewer. And really, the comments there just summarize what I've already told you guys. We start out right out of the pens, and it will go very, very fast out of the pens. Even for a Zwift race, this one will go fast out of the pens because sprinters have something to prove in the first 3 or 4 kilometers of the ride. But right out of the gate, there's a short flat, and then this 400-meter climb, averaging 3%, nothing to worry about. And there's your 1 kilometer marker in the top right, so look out for that as we go through the ride. Straight from that is to the S's. The S's are a stress point, but I think everyone's going to be pushing really hard in this race. So I don't think the S's are going to be anything other than just more distance that you are riding. The sprint hits us at 2.6 kilometers. All right, we're coming down the last of the small S's climbs, and I think this is where the first break point comes, because we hit this little climb up, and there's our 2 kilometer mark. It's only 200 meters, averaging 5%, but this is a time when somebody is going to go early for the sprint. Do they have the legs to make it all the way? Who knows? Do you? Who knows? But it is a good time to test everyone and go. And then we go over the top, and it's 200 meters down at minus 5%. And you really have to be pushing hard by now if you're going to make any way on this sprint. Slight bump up into the sprint. It's very short at 180 meters, but it is over this wooden bridge. You won't have a power up at this point. You will pick one up right now. Remember, you had FAL and FTS points available to you. You have from here to around 5 you have from here for a while to recover. And we are going to jump to the 5 kilometer marker. There we go. We're just ahead of 5 kilometers now. The break point I talk about here is at 5.3, and that's when you go up the steep part of the Hilly reverse KQOM. So I think by now the pure sprinters will probably have faded, and the front of the pack is going to be the punchers. So here we go with the Hilly Bypass. You have the steep part of the Hilly reverse, and then you cut left and accelerate through it into the descent where you can super tuck. You really need to do both of those things. So you push hard going up this steep part we're just hitting now, but you cannot let off as you go up here. And you'll see we're going to sweep to the left. You can see it in the mini map already. It takes us a few seconds to get there. Here we go around this bend. We will sweep to the left, and you really have to start accelerating. A little dip down here. You have to start accelerating now because you've got to get up to super tuck speed. Everyone else will be. If you want to stay in the group that you're in, push hard now. And you can see it's not steep here, -2, -3, enough to pick your speed up. There will be a surge. Drop the anvil if you've got it. Get up to 58 kilometers an hour. Super tuck down here. There's the 6 kilometer marker of 28. Bit of a micro rest. You've got to focus on bringing your heart rate down. Back on the power though now. Stay in the pocket. Stay attached. Stay with the group that you're in. And we've got a little while now just to recover. I'm going to jump though. We jump to the 7 kilometer mark because it does get a little technical, and I just wanted to remind you of that. There at 7 kilometers, a bit of dirt, a bit of this wooden bridge. It's a false flat going up in a second. And then we head into the hot springs. Don't let any of that phase you. There's the 9 kilometer mark. Remember, what we're looking for is to stay in the pocket, drafting until we get to 11.9 kilometers. jump to 11 kilometers. So one more to go to that sprint. Oh, one more to go to that KQOM. And here we go, Titans Grove, reverse KQOM. It sort of loops around a U-turn. It's a fairly steady climb. When they put it in this route, they envisage it as a VO2. Here's what I think your times are. 1 minute 20 for top flight A's, down to 2 minutes for top flight D's. Here we go, round this bend. There's the marker, and away we go. 910 meters. It's a pretty steady 4.5%, varies mostly between 4 and 5. We're just passing 12 kilometers of 28 now. In the mini map, you can see sweeping in the, oh, you can't see it, sorry. That's a different gate. Keep going up the hill, ignore me. There's Mr. Tries Too Hard passing me on a mountain bike. Now the KQOM gate itself is actually hard to see in the mini-map, and it's not that obvious. I'm sure you've all done this before, but take a close look as we come past it. It's not the usual. It's just two little things, one each side of the road. And you can see it in the mini-map now. Keep pushing. Clear in the mini-map. There it is on the side of the road. You can see it now. And we're through. Just like before, push hard through here. You can't afford to relax because it's just not steep enough to push your speed up. So your group's going to push on. But the job is to get the heart rate under control. This is where you can think about, if you're a puncher, you can think about whether or not you want to just keep pushing hard yourself, or whether keeping an eye out for your own climbers and nursing them along is the right thing to do. For the most part, we descend down to 15.5 kilometers from here. But sit in, if nothing else, sit in and bring your heart rate under control. Keep yourself going. There we go, we're halfway through the race at this point. Okay, so we've got a set of rollers coming. And the thing about these rollers is I think this is another break point where the really tired riders, maybe some of those punchers that really pushed it going up the last KQOM, are really going to be hurting. So just stay with the group that you're in and do everything that you can, and don't be part of that split. We're doing some jumping around now to 17 kilometers, 18 kilometers. Across the bridge, and then we're going to head into the undersea tunnels. There we go, 20 kilometers of 28. One more jump. 21 kilometers of the 28. We've got this other bit of technical here. Again, boardwalk, gravel, boardwalk, gravel. And you can see the start of the big climb ahead. As I said, I am going to accelerate to 10 times speed so it doesn't waste your time going up this hill. If that makes everyone a little bit sick, just let me know in the comments. But I think it comes through all right. Okay, epic reverse, KQOM, 6.2 kilometers, 400 meters of elevation gain. Not what Strava says, which is 365, because they're talking about difference and not gain. Here's my times. Between 15:30 for top flight men, down to just over 30 for the Ds. 10 times playback. I'm going to count the kilometers to the finish from here on, because I think that's a lot more important to you. How many kilometers do I have to go than how many kilometers in the race have I gone? So again, comments down below as to whether this thing on the top left hand is working for you. There we go. As we pass the gate that takes us over to the jungle, there's a kilometer marker for you. As we go down this hill, we hit 4 kilometers remaining in the race. You can see there's so much that's long and sustained, 9-10% on this climb. And you can also see why this is when the climbers, the grimpers, can catch the punchers that took them earlier on. 3 kilometers left. There will be just a conga line of riders at this point going up. There won't be any groups at all, and that doesn't matter because there's no draft effect that's going to help anyone out. There's a sustained stretch of 10%. Oh, some respite at 9. Around we go, 2 kilometers remaining, just after that slight dip. One kilometer, the Flamme Rouge. And remember the last 300 meters, and we're almost there. The last 300 meters is flat, so save whatever you've got for that last 300 meters. The last little bit of hill here. You can see it in the mini-map. Flattens out. I've slowed us back down just for the last 300 meters. There's the gate. For you, it marks the finish. Although you do get that free little descent if you want it. This is the time to deploy that burrito if you still got it. And across the line, there's your race. I'll leave you as always with all the downloadables, which you can download, or you can just kind of watch now. They're not on the screen for long now. And if I don't talk to you before Tuesday, ride on with the cough that I've been muting over. I don't think I'll be riding on Tuesday, but I will do my very best to DS a couple of teams, as I usually do try to. Anyway, ride on everybody.